This is a busy week. We could have done Reformation Sunday last week, and Reformation Day was actually Monday. We've had All Saints Day. Many churches are recognizing Election Sunday today. We've been asked to be in prayer, solidarity for the water. It is Communion Sunday. There are several other things we could have thrown in today. So our question is, what's a Christian to do? What's a Christian to do in these times when we're pulled so many different directions and our thoughts are going so many different places and we're hearing about this happening here and that happening there? And so when life gets overwhelming, we need to simplify. Simplifying for me is Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of you, O mortal? To do justice, loving kindness, and walk humbly with your God. And simplifying for me is a mantra, Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Over and over again, be still and know that I am God. I'm not a big fan of pulling scripture out of context, grabbing a verse, and hanging an entire message on just a few words. This week, though, that's what I'm going to do. They say that whenever a sermon is written, it is preached first to the preacher. And today, I'm attempting to give myself a much-needed message that hopefully will also be meaningful to you. It seems to me that there are so many crises in the world, so many different directions for our minds and our hearts to be pulled at once, that it's much easier to feel pulled apart than it is to feel centered and at peace within ourselves. We have wars. We're currently bombing 7 nations. 7. We have humanitarian crises like Haiti, which was devastated by Hurricane Matthew and hadn't yet completely recovered from previous hurricanes and earthquakes. We have human trafficking, some as slave labor, some as sex slaves. There are people enslaved in diamond mines. There are people enslaved in garment factories, in food production facilities, like much of the fish that is imported from Southeast Asia, and on plantations that produce sugar, chocolate, and coffee, and other things that we affluent people simply cannot live without. Within our own country, we struggle to decide whose lives matter, if any. When we allow ourselves to take in all the various news stories about problems within the USA, it feels like we've become a third world nation instead of the leader of the free world. Our city streets are unsafe. Our police forces are becoming more and more militarized. People sound asleep in their own beds are not safe from the gunfire that erupts without warning on their streets outside their homes. And we're making ourselves sick with horrendous diseases caused by years of pollution. Much of the water is poisoned. Much of the air is unfit to breathe. The streets are crumbling, with bridges threatening to collapse and potholes just waiting to swallow up our cars. Our political leaders, for the most part, seem unresponsive to our pleas for help. They turn deaf ears when we, the people who have elected them, attempt to fulfill our responsibility as citizens within this system by providing our input on important issues. When we try to do our part to be a piece of the solution instead of being a part of the problem, there are so many problems it's nearly impossible to know where we should focus our energy. The schools need help. Children need mentors. We need to work to educate our society about systemic racism and white privilege. We need to work for equal rights for all. But even that's difficult because the various groups struggling for equality are stepping on each other as they try to climb out of the pit of discrimination. The planet needs us. We need to fight poverty. We need to help those with addiction. We need to care for the sick. We need to recycle. We need to become advocates for greener ways of But all that earth-friendly stuff takes time, and we are accustomed to the convenience of throw away everything. We want to decrease our dependence on fossil fuels, but we really value our mobility. We don't want to give up our cars and change our lives so that we only travel by foot or bicycle. Most of us can't begin to imagine how we would structure a life that didn't include our own car. And how about thermostats on the wall? At home, at work, at church? I love the comfort of being able to set a temperature for my surroundings. I don't want to have to do the physical work required to heat my home with wood, or to come home from a long day to a freezing cold house. I want that natural gas that magically supplies my furnace. So with all the conflicts within my own life, all the ways I don't live out my values of ecology, equality, and caring for others the way Jesus cares for me, how am I supposed to be an agent for change in the world? Scripture makes it very clear. God has expectations for us. Micah 6:8 says God requires. Not God suggests or God would sort of kind of like it, but God requires that we do justice, loving kindness, and walk humbly with our God. I have a love-hate relationship with that verse. I love knowing what it is God has placed me on this earth to be. I hate opening my eyes to the many ways I fall short. Doing justice gets tiring. It means being informed of all the injustice around us in order to be able to combat it. It means continuously monitoring my own heart and mind, watching for stinking thinking on my part so that I am ever better at loving others. One of the videos I watched this week, was a Native American praying for unity of all people and for all of us to care for creation. It was a beautiful prayer, honoring all that God has made and embracing all humanity as one family. He closed his prayer by saying he is personally accountable for all his words and actions. I was moved to tears. His words were beautiful, his prayer was sincere, and his declaration of personal responsibility was profound. In the simplicity of the message, he summed up the messages of Jesus. Even though his prayer was based on Native American spirituality, the spirit, with a capital S spirit, was the same. He prayed for the same things Jesus prayed for and the same values Jesus taught. Unity, caring for one another, love, and accountability. In 2 days, those of us who haven't voted by absentee ballot will be stepping into a booth and casting our votes. It's been a loud and ugly 3 years of campaigning for the office of president. It's been all that an election should not be. Divisive, filled with dirty tricks, name-calling, and ugliness as the candidates have attempted to get our allegiance by telling us all the reasons we should not vote for the other candidate. Vote for me. I may not be your dream commander-in-chief, but at least I'm not that one. The campaign trail is so filled with mud that has been slung from one to the other and back and forth that we can barely pick our feet up to keep walking toward our voting precincts. Yet in the midst of the dirty politics, we are still called to be reflections of Christ. Although we declare a separation of church and state, there can be no dichotomy within our personhood. We must integrate our faith values with our politics. We must look at candidates and issues, try to determine where the candidates and their parties actually stand, look at our own values, and attempt to make the best choice for the world. Not just the best choice for me, but the best choice for creation. That's what doing justice is about. Our faith belongs in the voting booth as well as in the church. In a way, being involved in politics and using our right to vote, our conscience, is a bit like Martin Luther taking a stand against the problems he saw with the church. He voted for change by nailing his concerns to the door and refused to back down. He'd been struggling with the system, trying to reconcile his faith and his life, and found some things he could no longer ignore. The grace he had finally found after years of seeking God's comfort, the forgiveness he had finally been able to accept, gave him courage to live his convictions, even though it was a very dangerous thing for him to do. Although there wasn't an election, he voted. He said, "This is the way we should be living, and this is how I will be living." On this Sunday, when we've mushed together Reformation, All Saints' Day, Election Sunday, Communion, celebrating our own Salem family with reception of 2 new members, solidarity and prayers for the water, and all the other concerns we carry with us all the time, we need to remember the message of the psalmist. We need to take a breath, or a bunch of breaths, calm our minds, and rest secure that while we're called to be agents of God's shalom, we're also privileged to be God's own. We can be still and know that I am God, as we, like Martin Luther, take our stand on the issues most heavy on our hearts. We draw courage from the lives who've gone before us. We look to those lives for examples in our own lives. We thank the saints, and we thank God for the faithful witness of courageous love to light our path. And then, holding ourselves personally accountable for our words and actions, we take the next step on our own life's journey. May we walk in light all our days, resting securely in God's gracious love. Amen.